Joe Scipione. This is a blog I wrote, a review for Adam Neville's The Reddening. I was first introduced to Adam Neville's writing around 2012, right after his novel The Ritual came out. About a third of the way through, I realized it was going to be something I enjoyed. By the end, it was easily on my list of favorite books of all time. After finishing The Ritual, I read anything by Neville that I could get my hands on, and found he writes the exact type of horror that I like to read: dark, gritty, unsettling, and intense. While I like all of his work, my favorites, other than The Ritual, are Last Days, No One Gets Out Alive, and Lost Girl. For me, this new novel, The Reddening, easily fits into that group, possibly moving to the top slot just behind The Ritual. Yes, it's that good. The story revolves around a series of disappearances and possible suicides in a region of England, especially near an area known as the Brickburg Caves. The caves became an archaeological dig site where it appears ritual killing and sacrifices may have happened in the past. A journalist named Katrine and a woman investigating the death of her brother named Helene both realize that atrocities of the past were not quite human and do not live merely in the past. Once the story is set up, the pace of the book takes off and pulls you through the story to the gory end. The plot is fantastic, and as always, Neville's characters are well-rounded and fit perfectly within the story. However, for me, as with The Ritual, what makes this book stand out and make the leap from good to very good is the setting and descriptions in general. I've never been to Devon, England, and would be hard-pressed to find it on a map, but Neville's descriptions of the area are impeccable and set up the atmosphere of the night right from the very first sentence. His descriptions of the area in and around the harrowing Redstone Farm are equally parts beautiful and dreadful. Neville's ability to set a mood and maintain that mood throughout a novel is what sets him apart from many of his contemporaries. It doesn't take long to figure out you're reading a Neville book based solely on the descriptions of the setting and the characters. Though it's not something I usually do when I write reviews, I can't talk about this book without talking about the physical book itself. I was fortunate enough to get my hands on the limited edition, hardcover edition, and it is exquisite. As I said, I don't usually talk about the actual book, but this is too good not to mention. If there is any way to get your hands on it, I highly recommend. The book itself is slightly smaller than the usual hardcover, but I think it is one of the biggest positives of this edition. It fits in my hand a little better, and it feels like a hardcover book. The cover art is fantastic, with the ominous red face staring back at you from the otherwise black page. The pages are obviously high quality, and it feels as though you're reading an important book with each turn of the page. You are reading an important book when you pick up The Reddening, because as someone who's read many of the horror novels to come out in 2019, I think this is right near the top, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is nominated or wins for Best Novel of the Year in 2019. Easily a strong 5 out of 5 on this one. Actually, Horrorbound was the first site I started on. So I had always read a lot of books. I read like over 100 books a year, and I would just put stuff on Goodreads as I got through them, a couple sentences here and there, and then I saw a posting they were looking for reviewers at Horrorbound, and so I just sent them an email and said I read a lot of books. I'd write short little reviews on Goodreads. And they said, sure, come over and write reviews for us. So then I started writing reviews for them, and it was really a learning experience, and I kind of learned as I went along. So the first few reviews that I wrote weren't that good, and then as I kind of got more practice writing longer style reviews, it just kind of felt more natural, and I was able to pull out a little bit more than a couple sentences for the reviews that I wrote. Sure, I joined them in 2019, so it's been a couple of years now, and it was just one woman, and she worked on it kind of on her own, and she really wanted to kind of build it up into more than just her individual blog site. So she got some writers, and we have a big team now. There's like 7 or 8 of us that write regularly, and then we have people jump in every once in a while. There's fiction on the site, there's movie reviews, book reviews, and sometimes we take deep dives into certain subjects. Like there was we did a Lovecraft deep dive last year, and we all kind of looked at cosmic horror and the stuff that he was doing. Overall, I'd say Horrorbound is mostly a review site, but it's a positive review site. So if there's books that we don't like, we're not going to go on and write a review that just trashes a book. We just pass on that review and not write it. So we try to keep things positive, and just write the good stuff and try to pull the good out of anything that we watch or anything that we write. So I would say it's a review site, but it's also a horror promotion site, because that's really what we want to do, is promote all of the different things that we watch and read. Sure, I like the fact that it's a positive site, because I'm a fiction writer also, and I don't want to go around and write negative reviews of all these books that I don't necessarily connect with. So I'd rather just not review it at all and move on to something that I do like. And I like that, because there's so many indie authors out there, and authors of small presses, and those presses aren't going to have the marketing budget that a big publishing house will have. And so to have the sites like ours and other sites that will help out these smaller authors and smaller publishing houses, just kind of get the word out there, and people know to look to our site and other sites to be able to find these smaller books that don't have the budget but are really good books, and people should be out there reading them, and it's one way to kind of get the word out there. This is like the hardest one for me, because, well, not the hardest one, but I kind of learned this one on the job. I would write these reviews, and I don't like to know a lot about a book when I go in and read it. And I never read the back of books. I just pick up the book. If I hear things that are good about it, or I like the title, I don't read very much about it. So when I was writing reviews at the very beginning, it was a lot of me saying how good the book was without telling anyone what the actual book was about. And so for me, I kind of learned that it's okay to give away plot points. It's okay to give away, hints here and there of what's going to happen, and it'll make the review better. And also, I like to give like a little personal background while I'm writing it, because I take a lot of notes while I'm reading something, so that I have something to look back on when I write the review, and I always try to connect it personally to me. This is how it made me feel, because I think that if it makes me feel that way, when other readers pick it up, they're going to feel that way too. And when they're reading the review, they'll say, oh yeah, I would love a book that makes me feel like this, so let me pick up this one and give it a shot. Well, there's a bunch that have. I stuck to book review sites because that's mostly what I look at. I don't watch a ton of horror, so I don't know a ton of movie review sites, but I stuck to book review sites. Angie, she actually used to write for Horrorbound, and she started her own review site, strangersites.com, I think. Hers is really good, and then Nightworms does a bunch of good reviews. Ginger Nuts of Horror is another one. Kendall Reviews, and then Well Red Beard. All those guys do a good job, I think, of kind of what we do, promoting good fiction, good horror fiction, and especially the indie horror authors that are out there and all trying to sell books and get their books read. I have a novel coming out this summer. It's called Perhaps She Will Die. It's from World Castle Publishing. And basically, there's been a series of disappearances over the course of many years in this one small neighborhood. And a woman and her family just moved into this neighborhood. She thinks it's their dream house, and like everything's perfect in this neighborhood. And then there's another disappearance with someone her son knows, and she starts to look into this disappearance because she wants to help out and see if she can uncover this mystery. And then it turns out to be a little more darker and more paranormal than she thought it was going to be. And so that comes out this summer. And then I have some short stories and stuff that are coming out, but that's the big one for me.